I wasn't supposed to be home that day. The original plan was simple. Stay at the conference until Sunday, catch the early flight Monday, and come back to Rachel like always. A little tired, a little jet-lagged, but happy to see her. Instead, my flight got bumped and then unbumped, the final panel was canceled, and I figured, why not come home early and surprise her? I even picked up her favorite croissant from that overpriced bakery near the airport. One of those stupidly flaky ones with the raspberry filling that stains your fingers red. I remember thinking, she's gonna love this. I should have known something was off the second I walked in. Not because anything looked wrong. That's the thing, everything looked too right. The house smelled like lavender cleaner, the couch pillows were actually fluffed, and a candle was burning on the coffee table. Not just any candle. The fancy one. The one she only lit when people were coming over or she wanted to reset the energy. Whatever that meant. But okay, I told myself. Maybe she had a rough morning. Maybe she was just in a mood to deep clean. People do that. I set my bag down gently, trying not to make too much noise. There was music playing from the kitchen. Something upbeat, a little too loud. It was the kind of playlist Rachel used when she was trying to lift herself out of a funk. I called out her name. No answer. Rachel? Nothing. Just the clatter of a pan and the low hum of the stereo. I wandered down the hall toward the bedroom to wash up before saying hello properly. The bathroom door was slightly open. Sunlight from the skylight made the whole space glow gold. Steam still clung to the mirror like someone had taken a shower not too long ago. Then I saw it. Hanging over the towel rack, like it belonged there. Like it lived there. A man's shirt. Not mine. I stared at it for a good 30 seconds before I even touched it. It wasn't anything fancy. Just a white button-down. Sleeves rolled to the elbows. Faint blue pinstripes running down the front. The collar was wrinkled like it had been tugged on, worn hard. There was a label stitched inside the collar. Chase and Brothers London. Never heard of it. Definitely not American. I reached out and ran my fingers over the fabric. It was still damp. Not wet, but not dry either. Like it had been worn just recently. And then the smell hit me. Cologne. Not mine. Stronger. Musky. Something expensive. It had that undertone of citrus and wood. It clung to the collar, saturated into the sleeves. I didn't recognize the scent, but it made my skin crawl. Rachel's voice drifted in from the kitchen, light and casual. She was humming along to the music. She had no idea I was home. Or maybe she did. I stepped back, tried to steady my breathing. My hand was still resting on the doorframe. The shirt was just there, like it was mocking me. I looked around the bathroom, 2 towels on the rack instead of one. Hers was pink. The other was navy blue. We didn't own navy blue towels. My heart started pounding. I walked into the kitchen slowly. She didn't hear me at first. The music was too loud. She was by the stove, dancing a little as she scrambled eggs. Still wearing pajama pants and one of my old college hoodies, the gray one with the faded logo and the frayed sleeves. She looked so normal, so painfully normal. When she finally turned around and saw me, she gasped, just for a split second, then smiled wide. "Nate, you scared me." She laughed. "What are you doing here? I thought your flight wasn't until Monday?" I held up the shirt. This was in the bathroom. Her smile didn't fade. Not right away. She just tilted her head like she was trying to remember what I was talking about. Then she laughed again. Too quickly. "Oh, that's not what you think. Jen and I went thrift shopping last weekend, for that pajama party thing at her place. We were trying to find the ugliest stuff we could wear. That was one of them. Total joke. I forgot I left it in there." Her tone was light, breezy. The kind of tone you use when you're making fun of something ridiculous. She went right back to stirring the eggs like we hadn't skipped a beat. I stood there, still holding the shirt, watching her. There was no hesitation in her voice, no crack in the story. Her eyes didn't flicker. Her hands didn't tremble. She didn't flinch. That was what scared me the most. Because if she was lying, she was good at it. Too good. I'd seen Rachel try to lie before, about little things, forgetting to pay a bill, pretending she hadn't ordered something online when a suspicious box showed up. She always fidgeted, blinked too much, talked in circles. But this was smooth. It was the confidence in her answer that set off the alarm. The way she smiled as she said it, like it was rehearsed, like she had already played this scene out in her head. Ugly thrift store shirt for a pajama party, I repeated slowly, watching her. She nodded, cheerful. Yeah, I mean, look at it. Doesn't it scream 1995 dadcore? I stared at the shirt again. It didn't look like a gag gift. It looked worn, lived in. Not something you'd wear as a joke. Something you'd wear because it was yours. And suddenly, I noticed something else. A single long, dark hair caught in the collar. Not mine. Not Rachel's either. I didn't say anything else. I set the shirt down on the counter, next to the eggs she was about to serve. She didn't ask another question. Didn't explain more than she had to. Just hummed along to the next song and poured the eggs onto 2 plates. Want coffee? She asked. I nodded. And we ate. The food tasted like nothing. My mouth was dry the whole time. It's a strange thing, realizing something is wrong in your marriage. It doesn't come as an explosion, not always. Sometimes it's a quiet, creeping dread. A single thread out of place. A breath held too long. A story told a little too well. That morning, sitting across from her at the kitchen table, watching her talk about brunch plans and the neighbor's new dog, I knew. I didn't have proof. Not yet. But I knew. Because love doesn't hide. Not like that. That night, I didn't go to bed. Not really. I lay on the couch with the lights off, the TV muted, staring at the faint reflection of myself in the black screen. Every time I closed my eyes, the image of that shirt came back. The way it hung there, the smell, the ease of her explanation. I tried to tell myself I was overreacting, that stress and travel were messing with my head. But my body didn't believe it. My chest felt tight, like I'd swallowed something sharp. Rachel went to sleep early. She kissed my forehead like always and said, "Don't stay up too late." Her voice was gentle, familiar, and somehow that made it worse. As the hours dragged on, my mind started replaying things I'd brushed off over the past few months. Little moments I'd dismissed because questioning them felt disloyal. Because love, to me, meant trust without interrogation. She'd started going out more. Evenings that used to belong to us. Takeout, dumb shows, half-finished conversations were suddenly booked with yoga, or a workshop, or helping my mom. When I asked questions, she'd smile and say I worried too much. And I'd let it go. I always let it go. Her phone was another thing. It used to sit anywhere, on the counter, the couch, the bed. Now it never left her hand. Always face down. Always on silent. Once, I picked it up by accident, thinking it was mine, and she snatched it back so fast I actually laughed. She laughed too, but her laugh came half a second late. There was the night she came home close to midnight, hair messy, eyes unfocused. She said she'd fallen asleep during a guided meditation class. On a mat, in a room full of people. I remember nodding, even though none of it made sense. I remember telling myself not to be that guy, the paranoid husband, the insecure one. She stopped talking about work. Not complaining, not venting, just silence. When I asked how her day was, she'd give me summaries instead of stories. She used to tell me everything, the office drama, the awkward meetings, the tiny victories. Somewhere along the way that stopped. And the password change. God, that one should have hit harder. One afternoon I tried to use her laptop to print something and got locked out. She apologized, said her company required more security now. I accepted it. Didn't even question why she'd looked nervous while explaining. Lying there on the couch, all of it lined up. Not dramatically, quietly, like puzzle pieces sliding into place against my will. I realized something then. I hadn't ignored the signs because I was stupid. I'd ignored them because seeing them would have meant accepting a truth I wasn't ready for. That the woman I trusted more than anyone might be choosing a life that didn't include me. The worst part wasn't the fear that she was cheating. It was the certainty that I'd been slowly removed from my own marriage. That somewhere along the line, I'd become background noise. Around 3 a.m., I sat up and rubbed my face. My reflection in the dark window looked older, tired. I thought about 6 years together, about promises made casually, assuming they'd last because we meant them at the time. I didn't confront her the next morning, or the next. I watched instead, listened more than I spoke. And every time she smiled, every time she kissed me goodbye, I felt the distance widen just a little more. The suspicions didn't explode. They settled. And once they did, they didn't leave. The truth didn't arrive with shouting or confrontation. Came quietly, accidentally, almost gently. Rachel had gone to take a shower. The water was running, the bathroom door locked, steam creeping out under the frame. Her purse sat on the chair by the door, half open, keys buried somewhere inside. I only meant to move it. I needed my car keys, and hers had been tossed on top of mine earlier that day. I reached in without thinking. That's when my fingers hit something solid. Flat, plastic. A phone. Not the one she always carried. This one was older, smaller. No case. The screen protector was peeling at the corner like it had been slapped on in a hurry. For a moment, my brain refused to connect it to anything real. I told myself it was an old device she'd forgotten to throw out. Then it vibrated. Once. Soft. Like it didn't want to be noticed. I pulled it out and stared at it. The screen lit up with a single notification preview. I can still taste your lip gloss. Same hotel tonight? My hands went numb. I didn't sit down right away. I stood there in the middle of the living room, phone in my palm, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The shower kept running. Rachel was humming again, muffled through the walls, completely unaware that everything was about to end. I unlocked the phone. No password. No hesitation. The message thread was already open. Names didn't matter. There was only one contact. The messages weren't explicit. They didn't need to be. They were int asterisk mate in the way that only people who've crossed a line can be. Plans. Inside jokes. Compliments whispered through text. Then there was the photo. Rachel wearing my hoodie, sitting on a bed that wasn't ours. Knees pulled to her chest, smiling softly at whoever stood behind the camera. In the corner of the frame, a man's arm rested against the mattress. Muscular. Familiar in the worst way. A tattoo near the wrist. 2 letters. J. The timestamp said 3 days ago. 3 days ago, she told me she was attending a psychology lecture across town. Came home late. Said the room was stuffy. Said she was exhausted. I felt something inside me collapse. Not loudly, not all at once. Quietly, like a structure giving up without resistance. No screaming. No rage. Just a deep, hollow absence where certainty used to live. I scrolled. There were hotel confirmations, voice notes, short recordings of laughter I didn't recognize as hers anymore. In one, a man's voice whispered, "He'll never find out. He's too soft." She laughed. That sound stayed with me longer than anything else. I locked the phone and set it back exactly where I found it. My hands were shaking, but my movements were careful. Deliberate. I didn't want her to know yet. I needed time. I needed clarity. I needed control over at least one thing. When she came out of the shower, wrapped in a towel, she smiled at me like nothing had happened. Asked what I wanted for dinner. Told me she loved me. I said it back. And in that moment, I understood something terrifying. She didn't slip. She lived this way. I didn't sleep much after that night. I didn't rage. I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything. I just adjusted. Quietly. Internally. Like something inside me had shifted position. Accepting a colder kind of gravity. It was a strange kind of peace, honestly, knowing. Certainty hurts less than doubt. Doubt whispers. Certainty just sits there. I spent the next few days playing my role. Husband. Listener. Smiler. Her eyes would meet mine over coffee or dinner and hold steady. She wasn't worried. She thought she'd gotten away with it. She had no idea she was standing on glass. That gave me time. I started small, her laptop. It used to be our shared device, then became her work machine. Password protected, obviously, but I'd seen her type it in enough times to know the rhythm. She wasn't careful. That told me everything. Once I was in, I expected a mess. But no. Rachel was neat even in betrayal. She'd made a folder. Buried in a folder. Hidden in another folder. It was called Documents 3. Inside, screensh *ts. Hotel confirmations. Reservation emails. Calendar entries with names I didn't recognize. Lena's baby shower. Mom's dentist. Yoga retreat. All codes. I realized. For hours she was elsewhere. With him. She hadn't deleted anything. Not really. Just tucked it away. A digital junk drawer of infidelity. Then there were the photos. Not nudes. Nothing explicit. But somehow worse. Rachel laughing in a hotel mirror. Her feet tangled with his. Their takeout on a nightstand. My hoodie. His hand. The tattoo again, RJ. Bold against the inside of his wrist like a brand. I copied everything. To a USB. To the cloud. To a private folder with a name she'd never click on. And then I found the audio files. She'd saved them. Dozens. Little moments. His voice calling her my girl. Her laughing through whispered secrets. One clip lasted 12 seconds. And in it, she says, "It's so easy with you." Like he's just background noise. I didn't pause. I didn't rewind. I just sat still and let the words settle like ash. He's just background noise. I backed that up too. There was no plan yet. No scheme. I wasn't thinking about revenge or exposure or drama. I just needed truth in my hands. Evidence. Not for a courtroom, but for my own sanity. Proof that I wasn't crazy or dramatic or insecure. That this really was happening. And it was. I even went as far as creating an anonymous email. One without a name. I uploaded the folder, every file, every photo, every plan. Then I found her company's HR contact buried on their website. Took me 3 clicks. I didn't write anything cruel. I didn't threaten. I didn't explain. I just attached the folder. Wrote, "Thought you should be aware. This affects your employees' conduct and scheduling." No name. No return address. Nothing. Just silence. Then send. Let the walls around her shift. Let her feel what it's like when the air changes and you don't know why. That was the first crack. The next morning, she woke up restless. Checked her phone twice before even brushing her teeth. Said she had a weird feeling, like something was off at work. I asked if she was okay. She nodded too quickly. That little hitch in her voice, uncertainty. Later that day, she came home early. Said her meeting was canceled. No smile this time. She looked distracted. Her bag clutched tighter than usual. Her phone never left her hand. She was nervous. Something had shifted. I watched her open the fridge, stare at the shelves like she'd forgotten what food was. She turned to me and said, "Have I been distant lately? With you?" It took everything in me not to flinch. "Why?" I asked calmly. "I don't know," she said, shrugging too hard. Work's been crazy. I've been tired. I feel like we've been off." "Yeah," I said, sipping my coffee. "We've felt off for a while." She nodded. Looked down. Her foot tapped. She wasn't confessing. She wasn't apologizing. She was checking, testing the air, seeing if I knew. I looked right at her and said, "You've seemed preoccupied." That word landed. She smiled tight. "Guess I should work on that." She walked away before I could answer. That was the first visible crack in her calm. And it was only beginning. The day I filed for divorce, it was raining. Not a dramatic downpour, just a slow, steady drizzle. Gray skies, wet sidewalks, everything washed out and colorless. Felt fitting, like the world had muted itself to match my mood. But I wasn't broken. Not anymore. I wasn't even angry. I was still. That kind of stillness that comes after a long, endless ache. When the pain doesn't scream anymore, it just exhales. I walked into the courthouse alone. No fanfare. No drama. Just me and a manila folder with papers I'd read 100 times. I handed them to the clerk like I was mailing a letter. She stamped them without blinking. "Anything else you need from me?" I asked. "No, Mr. Halden," she said. "You're all set." And that was it. No thunder. No crash. Just a quiet end to something that used to mean everything. I didn't tell Rachel. Not right away. I waited until the envelope came back, her copy of the filing official and cold. I left it on the kitchen table next to her mug. She saw it the moment she walked in from work. Her keys hit the table too hard. She picked up the envelope slowly, like it might bite. "What is this?" she asked. Her voice wasn't shocked. It was offended, like I was the one breaking something sacred. I didn't look up from my laptop. "You'll find out when you open it," I said. She ripped the seal and pulled the papers free, flipping through them, page after page. Her breathing shifted. "You filed?" she whispered. I nodded. "For divorce? You didn't even, Nathan, you didn't say anything." "I didn't have to." Her mouth opened, then closed again. She looked lost, disoriented, like someone yanked the rug out from under her and she wasn't sure which way was down. "Wait, so you just made this decision? Without talking to me?" "I made it after everything you didn't say," I replied. That was the conversation. Her hands were shaking now. The papers fluttered in her grip. "You went through my stuff, didn't you?" she accused. "Is that what this is about?" "I found what you left," I said. "Not what you hid. There's a difference." She paused, studied my face, waiting for me to crack, to give her something she could use. A fight, a weakness, anything. But I gave her nothing. "No discussion?" she asked. "No therapy? You're just done?" "Yes," I said simply. "But we've built a life." "No," I cut in, standing now. "I built it. You used it." Her eyes widened. That was the first time I'd seen the hit land. She tried again. "It wasn't serious," she said. "It was stupid. I know. I messed up, but it didn't mean anything." I laughed once, low and dry. "You planned hotels, Rachel. You wore my clothes to his bed. You laughed at me in voice notes. How much more serious did you need it to get?" She dropped her gaze. "I didn't mean for it to go that far. It didn't just go there. You took it there. Repeatedly." She sat down slowly, like her legs couldn't hold her anymore. For a long moment we both said nothing. Just sat in the same room, surrounded by the ghosts of a marriage that used to be alive. "I can fix it," she whispered. "I'll stop. I'll cut him off. We can start over." I didn't answer. "You're not even going to try?" she asked. Her voice cracked on the last word. I shook my head. "Because it wasn't a mistake," I said. "It was a choice. Conscious one. You chose against me. Again and again." Tears welled in her eyes. She wiped them fast, like crying in front of me was weakness, like she still had pride to protect. "You're really walking away?" she said. "I'm already gone." That night, I packed a bag and moved into my brother's spare room. I didn't slam doors or make speeches. I didn't even leave a note. She didn't deserve that version of me anymore. And when she texted, I didn't reply. When she called, I let it ring. When she emailed long paragraphs about regret, redemption, and what we had, I archived everyone. She sent me a photo of us once, from years ago, one of those cheesy couple selfies laughing in the car. Her caption said, "Don't you miss this?" I looked at it for 2 seconds before deleting it. Because no, I didn't miss that. I missed who I thought she was. And that person hadn't existed in a long time. I wasn't divorcing her to punish her. I wasn't trying to win. This wasn't revenge. This was escape. This was freedom. This was me choosing myself for the first time in a long time. 3 years later, I found myself at a rooftop New Year's Eve party in Manhattan. Champagne in hand, city lights glowing below. Life was different now. My business had grown. I had new friends, and beside me stood Jenna. Sharp, kind, real. We laughed about something silly, something simple. Then I felt a stare. Across the crowd, Rachel, dressed up, drink in hand, beside a man who looked bored. Her smile faltered the moment our eyes met. She looked like someone who had seen a ghost of her better choices. I didn't smirk. I didn't flinch. I just nodded once and turned back to Jenna. Not out of pettiness, but peace. I didn't need anything from Rachel anymore. That chapter was closed. Fully. I don't think of her much anymore. When I do, it's like remembering someone else's dream. Not pain, just distance. No waiting for closure. No ache for justice. Just pancakes on Sundays, quiet mornings, texts I don't have to decode. I don't care where she is now. Maybe she regrets it. Maybe she doesn't. Doesn't matter. The man who stayed, who doubted himself, who accepted crumbs. He's gone. And the one who stands now, he chose peace. He chose himself.